The red light go black. Okay, I will now call to order the THPRD Board of Directors meeting for February 14th, 2024. Jessica, would you please call roll?
Palacios.
Here.
Ping. Alfredo Moreno.
Here.
Barbie Minor.
Here.
Lisa Montblanco. Here.
Thank you, Jessica. And at this point, I will entertain any adjustments we have from the board to tonight's agenda.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the Board of Directors amend this evening's agenda to add a new business item pertaining to confirmation of the THPRD and Washington County representative on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee.
Second?
I'll second.
Jessica, would you please?
Palacios.
Yes.
Barbie Minor.
Yes.
Lisa Montblanco.
Yeah.
Alfredo Moreno.
Yes. Added that. Okay. We do not have any action resulting from executive session. So we are moving along to our proclamation. Proud to be recognizing and celebrating Black History Month. And looks like I will leave it off. Whereas THPRD is committed to eliminating the historical inequities of systemic racism and ensuring that people of color have the opportunity to play, learn, and enjoy park and recreation facilities, programs, services, and natural areas. And
whereas THPRD is dedicated to removing barriers to participation and fostering an inclusive culture. And
whereas Black communities have made and continue to make valuable contributions in the history of our nation's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And
whereas the Black community in the United States has been the target of systemic institutional racism, discrimination, exclusion, and violence based on identity, which stands in contrast with our core values. And
whereas Black History Month calls our attention to the need to recognize and lay the foundation toward actively eliminating systemic racism, racial disparities, and oppression to build a community in which all experience a full sense of belonging and respect for human dignity. And
whereas the THPRD Board of Directors has affirmed addressing racial inequity as a core THPRD value. And
whereas Black History Month is a time to celebrate the successes, to reflect upon ongoing challenges of Black communities, and look to the future to ensure solidarity, to work to advance equity and racial justice, and cultivate inclusiveness.
Now, therefore, the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare the month of February 2024 as Black History Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
Here. I'm going to read some of the activities and events that the district is doing this month in honor of Black History Month. All of our facilities are displaying posters at the rec centers. 4 of the facilities have bulletin board displays highlighting Black History Month with historical figures, terminology, and more. The display board at Conestoga also highlights the diverse contributions to the American Red Cross in conjunction with the blood drive they're hosting this month. Thrive after school has activities highlighting influential Black Americans such as Garrett Morgan and Ruby Bridges. Cedar Hills Rec Center has incorporated activities to inspire and educate students about the rich heritage and contributions of Black Americans. The Athletic Center is hosting From Triumph to Trailblazers, a movie series honoring Black history through sports. This will be continuing on through February 25th. Last spring, the THPRD Nature Center partnered with Beaverton Black Parent Union to host the 2nd year of the Black and Green Fellowship, and that's a paid workforce training experience that connected 11 Beaverton School District high school students to nature and parks, wellness, and careers in nature. And we have plans underway to continue this fellowship in the spring of 2024, which is great because you need to be exposed to these careers to have a viable path to them. So thank you for doing that. THPRD Nature Center is working with our cultural inclusion team and Beaverton Black Parent Union to start their series of soul strolls on Sunday, June 9th. Garden Home Rec Center is hosting the wonderful and amazing Black History 101 Mobile Museum for a second year. It was rescheduled to the spring due to the winter storm. Encourage you all to stop by and see that. It is impressive. And Beaverton Black Parent Union has partnered with the Athletic Center for a Kwanzaa celebration in December. It was a free community event and successful and meaningful to our partners and the community. We look forward to doing that again next year. So thank you all staff for all your efforts to lean into it and help kind of share the good word of everything that's worth celebrating and worth fighting for this month. So thank you very much. We will, as I get my paperwork in order. Audience time, do we have anybody signed up? No, we do not. So now we will go on to board time. There's 4 of us here tonight. Who would like to jump in? How about you, Miles?
Okay. The newbie always gets there. 6-7 months in, yeah. I'm really excited for next week's Parks and Facilities Committee meeting. This advisory committee, this will be the first meeting that I've attended with the new members of the committee. So I'm excited to meet the newbies and get to hear about the important insight that they have for our district relating to parks and facilities. So that will be a nice time this coming Wednesday. Otherwise, between our last meeting and now, not much has occurred, but I am looking forward to, in a couple of weeks, myself and some of my colleagues here will be attending Centro's gala, which I am really looking forward to. I will also say that today in my day job, I visited the Capitol with a group of about 40 students from across the state, and quite a few of them from our own district here that attend high schools that fall within the THPRD boundary. So it was cool to see these young people engage in the legislative process and advocate for things that are important to them. But other than that, things have been wonderful.
To hear it. Anybody else have anything want to speak on during this time?
Just quickly, I'll share that we have a fiduciary meeting coming up. And I feel like I owe you all a lot more information about what's been happening on Expo. Oh my gosh, what's the other committee thing I do? It left my brain. I'm sorry. Oh, well, sorry, the American Leadership Forum stuff, that just so that it adds to the collective knowledge of this group. So I'm going to write something up that maybe no one will read, but I'll send it.
I'll offer, I'm on similar cadence. So we have our next Nature and Trails Committee meeting next week. So looking forward to that. Unfortunately, our last session due to the storm, I wasn't able to join. So last month was a little harried, but looking forward to regrouping. And I know it's on the docket as well, but I'll just use this time to extend my sincere appreciation to the district and all of the staff who jumped in with these heroic efforts of what happened with this 100-year storm. I think we've all seen the devastation around, and man, that was a lot. So more to come later, but I just want to use this time as well to just share my thanks and appreciation.
Great. For me, I wanted to thank my peers who have been able to who are able to join the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. We had kind of a THPRD power play in there, which was good. Any opportunities we have to say hello and be present there are great. So thank you all for doing that, and encourage you to do it as your schedule allows. I wanted to say hello to Gina Lavacos here in the audience, our new foundation executive director. We have our first full meeting under Gina's leadership next week, I believe. I had a chance to sit down and visit with Gina after that event. And she's great. Look forward to you all getting to know her.
I'm meeting with her on Monday.
Wonderful.
Doing my homework.
Wonderful. What else? Kind of a funny story. I know I saw this on the financial report, but I was driving past Greenway Park with my kids in the car, and they saw an exciting construction project happening by the tennis courts and were eager to ask me if it was a castle or some sort of what exciting picture was. And I said, well, it's a castle to some. It's your permanent restrooms, which are hard fought. So the enthusiasm kind of in the car, but I said, you'll appreciate it when we need it. So that's exciting for some of us to see. So I'm glad that's there. So anyway, that's my report for this month. And now we can, let's see, let's lose my place here. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion to?
Sure thing. I'll jump in. I move that the board approve the consent agenda as submitted. I will second.
Jessica, please.
Emma Blanco.
Yeah.
Miles Blasius.
Yes.
Barbie Minor.
Yes.
Alfredo Moreno.
All right, agenda item number 8. We are going to get the maintenance operations update. A doozy. Welcome, John and Keith.
Yes, we were here last month talking maintenance, but then we had that real impressive storm that we experienced. And so we know that not everyone gets around to every corner of the district, and wanted to provide you with some images of what our staff heroically, as Barbie mentioned, what they went out and took care of for us, because we really did have quite a lot of impacts from that storm. So John and Keith, who are longtime members of our maintenance group and our park services division, have some before and afters to show you of what happened out in the district. So, John.
Thank you. Again, I'm John Campbell. I'm the maintenance operations manager for the district. And what you see here is what we're calling the storm response dashboard or map. What this is showing you is just like a high level, the impacts that happened throughout the district at all of our sites. The greens represent trees that have fallen or are leaning throughout the district. The red dots are structures that are assets that have been damaged. Other things that have been damaged or impacted, and then the white dots are no impact to the site. I want to special shout out to Jeremy Grappo. He's our parks resource analyst. I'm going to back up the story a little bit. In the summertime, he developed a fields map using ArcGIS, an app, and trained our staff to go out into the field and start collecting data on all of our asset inventories. Well, when we got into the storm on January 13th, he was able to get with our supervisors, our key staff, boots on the ground staff, managers, and redevelop our field map tool into what we're now calling the storm response dashboard. He made some tweaks to it. He put in applications that they could go out and identify the structures, identify the trees, using GIS pinpoints at each site, so that staff were able to go in with their handheld devices, key in or type in where they're at, and they can mark where the trees are fallen, what has been damaged, take photographs, and that information was basically downloaded immediately, which was beneficial to our supervisors, who are basically, they're the ones in communication with the patrons. They're seeing this real time, and they're making plans, calling contractors, getting them out on site immediately to address safety concerns or things that need to get done immediately. Our staff were able to get through all of their sites within a couple of days because they were very proficient with this tool, and it just made it very streamlined. My estimation going into this, we would be working on this for 6 weeks, and right now, after 3 weeks, we are very, very far into this and almost to the end of this. Yeah, this tool ended up being just a wonderful tool. I ended up getting onto it and using it quite a bit just to learn it. And it saved a lot of time, it helped our operations just be very proficient and efficient through this response. Next slide. I'm going to show you some before and after pictures of a lot of the sites so you can see kind of the severity of what some of the sites look like at first, and then how our staff moved through I'll walk you through some of the timing of that. This is at Mitchell Park, which is down in the southern, I think the southeast section of the park. This bridge leads up to the neighborhood, through the neighborhood at the top. It's a main thoroughfare through for a neighborhood. And these trees that fell through, they blocked the majority of the trail. Some of these trees actually went into some of the homes. This root ball that you see right here is approximately 15 feet high. So this trail is, as you can see, closed. Next slide. This is Vista Burke Park. And if any of you are familiar with these, it'll make sense. As you drive into this park, there's a loop trail that goes around the park from the parking lot all the way around. These pictures are taken as you enter the park and you're going around the loop trail. There was, I believe, 8 trees in this little grove that crossed the pathway. And this is the first phase of our staff going out. We deported staff in like groups of 4, so they were able to mobilize at different sites instead of going a big bunch at a time. And what their mission here was on their first day was to clear the path. Just get the path clear, move everything to the side, and then move on to the next site. This is Griffith Park. This isn't one that's really impacting people, but our concern here was with the snow and the ice that we had. We did have the water levels were up pretty high. This wasn't a first week where we got to first week. This was kind of secondary, but it just shows that staff went in, they were able to get the trees out of there, pull them out, and then just let them sit at the top of the park until we got around to our chipper crews coming around and just chipping everything up and recycling it. This is Roger Tilbury Park. It's part park maintenance and part natural area. This is a winding trail from the top down to the bottom, and there was an estimate of about 15 to 18 trees that went over the pathway. So this was a couple-day project with a group of about 8 people that took 2 to 3 days to clear that, to get all the logs out off the pathway and open it back up for the public. A lot of the trees that were dropped, we just left in the natural area for now. This is Raleigh Hill Park. I believe this tree did hit a vehicle that was in there. It's not showing here. This is one where we just went in. It's a lot of the patrons that use the park, they will come and park here, and that's a main entrance in. So we just went in, we got the tree cut up, got a chipper in there and just chipped it all up, and that tree was gone within 1 day. This is McMillan Park, and I think this picture, the first picture on the left, was taken on the first day of the storm. Very large fir tree that came down and went across the street. It took out 3 fences, our entrance fence, which is a split rail. The home behind it, the blue, they had a cyclone fence and lifted that up. Went across the street and thankfully missed this truck, but it demolished a fence that was across the street. It was a very large tree, and I believe it took 2 days for the city or the county to come out and remove the tree. Tree has now been cut all the way back up to about 8 feet in high, and the root ball is flipped back kind of in the hole. That's what we're finding out with a lot of our trees when we're cutting them. The root balls are starting to flip back over. That'll be something we'll be able to address later on down the road. This is the LC Stewart Center. You can see on the picture on the right, after it's cleaned up, most of the trees came from the property on the LC. The wind just happened to be blowing right into the parking lot, so that's where most of the trees landed. I believe we lost about 12 trees here. This was a 3-day project with another group of 4 people. They went in, cleared it all up. They moved all the logs to the I believe the east side of the property, just got them out of the way. It closed both entrances in off of 9th Street, and the facility was closed anyway, but there was a lot of trees in that parking lot. Center Street Park, if you look at the right picture going out towards the home, that's where these 3 trees were. There's 2 trails coming in. That's our main entrance on the east side of the southeast side of the park. We went out, actually, Aisha and I went out and visited. We went out on the first day we came back, staff came back. This was a site that we had a couple of groups, our park maintenance staff. It was very, very enjoyable to see. They were taking an opportunity, our full-time staff were taking an opportunity to use this site to train all of our part-time staff on chainsaw, using a chainsaw and PPE, which gave us just more tools in the toolbox. They spent hours working with them and got them so they could be valuable in helping with this tree removal process, and they loved it as well. So they got that opened up in the first day. This is Cedarville Park, one of the most impacted parks throughout the district. Again, Aisha and I visited this site on the first day. We saw probably 6 to 8 trees that were down. And what ended up happening when we sent arborists out there to take down these trees, we had some on the ground, we had some that were leaning. The arborists went around and checked all the other trees at the site and found, I believe, 9 or 12 more that the roots were uplifting. And the majority of the trees were right around this playground. So it meant that we had to remove those trees. So we ended up we're having about 20 trees in this area fall, dropped. This is Fir Grove. This is one side, the site that we did lose a playground. We had 2 large fir trees that fell directly on this playground and demolished it. This is Kaiser Woods, one of the nature areas. You can see some of the size of those root balls in there. We did unfortunately have some of the trees fell into the natural area. Some of the trees fell into homes, and parts of the natural area are still remain closed just because there's damage to the trails in there. Slide. This is the bluffs. Many of the trees that fell this site, which included crossing the trails, which is a main pathway for kids going to and from Bonnie Elementary School. So this was a priority site for the nature and trail staff to get the trees off the trail so they can open it up to the school children. And this is Barrett Woods, another natural area. We had trees falling into the paved pathway, and you can see the fence area here as well, and also into the soft surface trails. The main pathways are clear and open, but the soft surface trails remain closed due to the significant amount of damage that they sustained. This is kind of a snapshot of park impacts by the numbers. I will say this, that, you know, we put together these numbers after the first week. We were in that mode of gathering information, taking photographs, and responded to the storm damage. So I think that these numbers may be a little low, but with that, we know that we had 45 different sites that were impacted, At the time that we took this, we had documented 373 fallen trees. What caused it? Wind, saturated turf, ice. Types of repairs, play equipment, fencing, benches. We had a pump house at Raleigh Hills Park, got damaged pretty significantly. Trails, lampposts. We had a lamppost up at Griffith Park that got knocked down. An estimated cost around $700,000. So I'm going to pass it over to Keith Watson now to talk about the facilities.
Thanks, John. Good evening. I'm Keith Watson, Support Services Manager for the district. So you've seen a bunch of damage outside from trees falling, but we've also faced a lot of damage inside, not necessarily from structural damage from trees hitting facilities, but trees falling on power lines, which cut the power. And with the temperatures that week in the teens, 20s, we had a lot of frozen pipes and broken pipes and flooding. So that's going to kind of be my theme as I walk through these slides with you all. So we saw outside at Stir Center was pretty significant damage from all the trees, but also inside when we lost power, it led to the frozen pipes. These are both fire lines, which are typically in our ceilings, and also domestic water lines or plumbing lines. So we had pipes burst in the ceiling of the northwest entry and the entry near the Meals on Wheels program. And we also saw damage in the lines that feed the boiler at the center. So while much of the damage has been cleaned up, we have a few classrooms that remain closed, and that is due to significant water damage. It's hard to see in the photos, but we had, I think, 4 classrooms and 3 office areas that sustained pretty significant flooring damage that are going to be replaced, that need to be replaced. And then we also have some pending ceiling repairs still to go at the facility from water damage leaking down through from the attic areas. The good news is the center's open and repairs have been made to the boiler, to the plumbing, and to the fire lines. But we are still pending on the flooring repair. We have a contractor lined up and some costs on that. So that is coming here in the near future. This is a sad one, the Jenkins Estate Gatehouse. We lost power for several days at the Jenkins Estate. So we had some damage at a couple of facilities up there, but the gatehouse saw the most severe damage and will be closed for several months as repairs are completed. We've also had to relocate our preschool program from Jenkins Estate over to the Cooper Mountain Nature Park. So frozen water lines in the ceiling caused the major flooding at this particular facility. You can see the line that caused most of the damage in that left-hand picture. It just separated at that joint. In the middle picture, that dark ceiling that used to be all covered with sheetrock, you can see some of that down on the floor. And then you can see significant amounts of standing water in the kitchen on that right-hand side. We had a video of this that just is unbelievable. We've done a lot of cleanup, and we have hired, let's see here, there we go. Given the amount of damage and the historical significance of the house, we wanted to work pretty quickly in getting some contractors up there. So we hired a water restoration company, and work is underway. You can see in the photos that all the damaged sheetrock has been removed from the ceiling and from the walls. The kitchen has been completely cleared out. We lost all of the cabinets in the kitchen area. That's the photo on the left. We've got fans and dehumidifiers running up there the last couple of weeks. And we just heard today that they think they might be able to start kind of putting things back together, starting to really dry out finally, maybe next week or the following week after that. So a lot of damage at the gatehouse. Also at the Jenkins, we had another fire line burst up in the attic. And the photo on the left is kind of a snapshot of a video that was taken. It was literally raining in that facility. It came down from the attic, down through the main floor, down through the floor of the main floor into the basement. So Luckily, we were able to get up there pretty quickly. We had safety services respond, and a handful of folks got up there, and we got water swept up pretty quickly. So not a whole lot of damage to all that original wood flooring and wood ceilings, but we did have fire system sensors, smoke detectors, and a thermostat that needed to be replaced due to the water damage. And then the other site at the Jenkins that had a little bit of damage was at the main house, and we had a fire system sprinkler head burst and did a little bit of damage in a closet, but nothing too significant. So overall, all of our plumbing and fire lines at the estate have been repaired, and the gatehouse remains as one of our most significant projects pending from the storm. Over at HNT, you can see a theme here, a lot of water damage. Over in our main complex, we had more of the same with the breezeway restrooms at the aquatic center and the tennis center. We had fire suppression lines and water lines freeze and burst, causing major damage to the ceilings, to the light fixtures, and to an office area. Once the plumbing lines were repaired, we were able to get the restrooms temporarily open for a couple of weekend events. We have some swimming events last weekend and this weekend coming up, but there's still some drywall and electrical work that remains before they're opened up permanently. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we also saw some similar damage. Here's the pump house that John talked about, but we also saw some similar damage at other facilities across the district. The boiler at Harmon Swim Center was down for several days, causing a closure as the pool water temperature dropped. Most of our outdoor restrooms sustained damage to plumbing components and water lines. Double check and pressure valves were damaged at Raleigh Swim Center and at the Fano Creek Service Center. That's the photo in the middle. You can see how that frozen water just pulled that pipe or that plumbing fixture apart. And then we also had the pump house at Raleigh Park that was significantly damaged by a tree, and repairs to that will be coming here in the next several weeks to months. So by the numbers facilities, we had 14 facilities that were impacted. Classrooms, rec areas, restrooms, rental spaces, office spaces, and mechanical rooms. As I said, the theme was the power outage causing frozen pipes and flooding, all sorts of different types of repair. And to date, our cost estimates are about $185,000. We kind of keep finding little things here and there, but we feel like that's probably a fairly safe estimate at this point. So how do we pay for all this? And this is both on the park side and the facility side. Of course, these are all unplanned expenses, and many of the repairs needed to happen quickly to prevent further damage and to get facilities back up and running. So we have some different avenues for to cover expenses while also seeking reimbursement where applicable. So we have filed a claim with our insurance carrier, and staff are tracking all the work that's happening, expenses. We did apply for state and federal disaster recovery. I believe we turned that in at the end of January, and that was over $700,000 that we applied for. We're doing some reallocation of capital dollars and looking at savings from other capital projects where we might be able to find that. And then looking at district contingency funds, which are funds that are intended to cover unforeseen situations such as this. So last slide, just a big thank you to the board for your support. The coffee and treats that were delivered in late January were very much appreciated by staff. I know it means a lot to our teams to be recognized all the way from the top. So just a thanks on behalf of all of our staff for showing your support and coming out and providing some appreciation treats. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Comments, questions, my peers?
Good comment. I'm so sad and I'm so grateful. Like it's mixed up emotions, right? But sincere appreciation for all this amazing work. And one of the things that's, well, one question I sort of have is wondering about the playground, and just if I was a kiddo in that neighborhood and asked, when do I get my playground back? How would we answer them?
Well, they looked at me, so I'll cover that. So, I mean, those aren't things that we have in the warehouse, unless it was earmarked for another project. It used to be that those play structures might cost us $80,000. They're now $400,000. So that is a big hit that we will need to find the money to do if that's not covered with any kind of insurance claim. So we're finding that out. We're fixing the things that absolutely have to be fixed, and we're securing those spaces that are not safe to go in. We're probably going to have a real hard look at when and how we can pull that off, because it was unexpected and there's some other maybe higher priority needs, but we will do our best to make that park a fun place to play again soon. Thank you. I appreciate all your work.
This is more, I'll jump in for one moment. Food for thought in the coming months, et cetera. I think Doug and I were even briefly chatting. These once in a lifetime events, the regularity of which, and I feel like it's not just happening in winter, we see it in summer as well on the extreme side of here. So as you continue to move past the repair and recovery moment and can maybe catch your breath, if there are ways in which that we as a board can better support or get ahead and prepare, I don't think that these temperatures in the teens and these kinds of going away. I think this is going to be the new reality. And if we hit 370 trees this time, what is it next time? So if there is a way in which we can be more anticipatory, I think it's the timing of this is rather ironic when, again, just last month, it was, we need, bodies. We've grown so much. There's so much to take care of. That wasn't even layering in what we're dealing with climate change and the results and the impacts on our actual Mother Earth. So that's where my brain immediately goes, is we're going to be hit with this again. And how can we perhaps be, if there's anything that we can do. I know we can't predict the weather, but it's just my philosophical, would love to put a pin there so we can try to mitigate if we can.
Well, I would say that you are already doing that work, because you heard the presentation on the climate action plan. That's going to come back to you next month. And that plan talks about how we plan for the future and how we might plan the design of our parks going into the future, recognizing that the more extreme weather is here and it's going to continue. So you will have another opportunity to support that work when that comes back to you next month. Thank you.
John, Keith, thank you both so much for the presentation. I appreciate the thanks to us for the support, but honestly, it's y'all. It was a real pleasure to be able to come and visit the Phantom Creek folks that work out of that space, and just kind of get to chat with them a little bit, but also say thank you in person, because they very much are I think I said this while I was there, they're the heartbeat of our district. We can't do what we do without their support and their work. So again, thank you very much for helping our district.
Thank you. Pass that along to them. Thank you.
Yeah, showing, this was a lot of slides, but I think we needed to see all of them just to keep getting that impact. I mean, to see, and then the raw numbers. I mean, I think we were seeing it and absorbing it right in real, but I think it's a, I don't know, FEMA level natural disaster type, stuff you all were and your teams were dealing with. So to say we're grateful and proud is, understatement, but really, really impressive work. And I'm left without being able to articulate. Just, when you see the breadth of just place after place, it's kind of a red circle, to be able to go in there. And I also appreciated the story about the technology aspects and how you were doing it. This is, I do hope we don't have to deal with this immediately. It's eye-popping. So my only question beyond that is how are your folks doing now on the ground? I'm sure they've just been working so intensely for a while. How's everyone doing with the amount of work they've had to do since this?
I will say on the park side, the boots on the ground outside, we've been giving them, I wouldn't say a day off, but we give them a lighter schedule once during the week, because dragging logs and running chainsaws for 6 to 8 hours a day, it can be grueling. That was the benefit of training our part-time staff, because we do have a fairly good number of staff and a very good number of people that are energized, that really want to learn and become, a valuable asset to our team. But we are conscious of them getting burnt out, or we don't want anybody to get hurt. So we make sure, at least during the middle part of the week, that it could be they're servicing their chainsaws, they're sharpening their blades, they're getting their trucks cleaned out, they're doing the things that aren't strenuous, but things that still need to be needed.
I'll add also that if this happened a month from now, we'd probably be in a really different situation with grass growing intensely. This is typically a quieter time of year, so it's helpful that it occurred during this period. John mentioned our visit out to Center Street, where the full-time staff were training our part-time staff on the chainsaws, and there were smiles all around. And so I think they are deriving a great sense of accomplishment from bringing these parks and trails back to the people, because many of them were not passable. So they're tired for sure. We're very conscious of safety, but I think they're also very proud of what they've been able to accomplish. And that's our park maintenance folks and our building maintenance folks, our nature and trails folks.
And I know we've shared the stories a little bit through our communications channels. I think it's just great for us to tell folks that we encounter as well. And definitely major pride on this side of the table for sure. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a little unorthodox step here, and we're going to revisit audience time. So we do have a community member who is here to testify, and I want to make sure they have that opportunity. So thank you very much. Okay, Eduardo Ambris, if you can.
Should I speak from my seat?
Right there at that table there. And once you're seated, you just we'll just have you say your name and your address for the record, and then Jessica will give you 3 minutes. And look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
All right.
Okay, just give your name and your address, and then.
My name is Eduardo Ambris. My address is 16191 Northwest Canton Street, Unit 3201, Portland, Oregon 97229. And I'd just like to preface my statement by saying that I am a proud member of Washington County and here in the local Tualatin Hills area. I love living here. I love the community, and I am making a statement not only on behalf of myself, but the disability experiencing community, people that fall into the category of BIPOC community, and also just my faith-based practices, which include my indigenous roots, Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism. If you guys would just kindly reasonably accommodate my need to perhaps go beyond the 3 minutes. I tried to keep it within that time. I timed myself. I'll do my best to communicate to the best of my abilities, and I'll begin now. Members of the board of Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, I am speaking before you today in public comment for the purpose of exposing the conditions by which services, programs, and facilities within Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District are within non-compliance of the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended. I am also speaking to expose a hate bias crime that I was a victim of, perpetrated by THPRD Cedar Hills Recreation Center. On December 1st, I was the victim of racial profiling, discrimination, and I was subject to a bias crime. On that day, while using the shower facilities, Center Supervisor Brian Schlottman, accompanied by a member of the Safety Services team, banged on the bathroom doors for nearly a minute, frightening both myself and my service animal. There was no justifiable reason for said conduct other than it was intended to intimidate and frighten me and my animals. While I was naked, both Brian Schlottman and the Safety Services staff member then walked into the bathroom, watched me showering for a moment in the nude, and then exited. As I finished my shower and was getting dressed, Brian Schlotman and the safety service member once again returned to the bathroom and told me that my dog was prohibited from performing assistive duties for me in compliance with ADA guidelines. Both parties accosted me and stated that my appearance and my service animals were a cause for suspicion. They did not clarify other than to make the claim that there were complaints that a suspicious person with a dog was in the bathroom. I self-identified myself, my disabilities, and my service animal. Under duress and threat and coercion, I put my service animal in my vehicle. I used the gym equipment to engage in exercise necessary to combat my disabilities. Upon finishing my workout, I retrieved my service animal and proceeded to use the restroom. While I was literally sitting on the toilet, an office support staff member by the name of Patrick knocked on the bathroom stall. He interrupted my use and told me that I could not use the shower or the bathroom and that I had to leave.
I'll give you about 30 more seconds, okay? Sure. Thank you.
Patrick told me that if I wanted to use the bathroom facilities, I was required to check in and ask for permission prior to accessing the bathroom facility. I left immediately and did not return for nearly 3 weeks due to fear of more bias crimes and anxiety-induced discrimination. Subsequent to this incident, out of retaliation, I was denied bathroom access by 3 separate office staff members on 3 different dates during open business hours. To further define the non-compliance of Cedar Hills Rec Center, I will point out the regular practice of locking the bathrooms and the disability accessible entry points during regular business hours. This practice and enforced policies therein.
Companies, I'll have to stop you there. I'm so sorry, but yeah, we have to stick to the protocol. Go ahead.
Is there any way that you could reasonably accommodate me and allow me to finish this statement? It's on.
We do have to stick to the agenda that we have posted, but I was glad to be able to rework the agenda to let you
Sure.
have your time this evening. I think.
I wasn't aware that there was a cutoff time for the audience time. There's nothing stated on your guys' website, so perhaps you guys could adjust that so that the public would be more aware.
Okay, we can look into that. Thank you very much for being here, for sharing. Yeah.
Thank you guys so very much. God bless you.
Thank you. You go, Ron.
Okay, we will move back to, we are back to the general manager's report, agenda item 8B.
I feel like we should encourage a response from staff within the next few days to the board of directors.
We're in process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are to 8B, general manager's report with Holly to give us an update on the local option levy.
And on that prior speaker, we have more information and we'll be able to provide a written report to you before the next board meeting. Much greater confidence. Oh, thank you. Sorry, do not know. Okay. Good evening, members of the Board of Directors. I'm Holly Thompson, your Communications Director, and I'm here tonight to give you a brief update on the levy process. So what has happened since last month when we met, when you unanimously voted to forward the local option levy to the voters? First things first, thank you to our president, Alfredo. We have completed the first step of paperwork and submitted both our ballot title and summary. And by mid next week, we will be through the challenge period and able to file our explanatory statement. So when you look at, I will kindly call it the bureaucratic hurdles and paperwork process we have to file, we are well on our way. These deadlines are not due until March, so we are early birds getting the worm, and we are ahead of things in the paperwork process. Just for memory purposes, remember, once we are through the challenge period and our ballot title is formal, that is when those more strict requirements about being in strict public information mode really take effect. So myself as a staff member and all of the people that are staff, we're really in the just the facts ma'am mode and really explaining the local option levy from a factual basis. Advocacy comes from people in the community or elected officials such as yourselves. So we're beginning the bureaucratic process. Secondly, we are out and about talking to the public. So far, we have had 29 public meetings, events, activities. I turned this PowerPoint in yesterday. It's already outdated. 20 more to go. So every day we schedule more presentations. I've had, my numbers are in my head. I have 5 this week, 1 this weekend, and no clue what I'm doing next week because I think that far ahead, I lose my mind. But just this week, for example, I spoke at the LC Stir Center, spoke to folks in the Meals on Wheels program. I was at a CPO Monday night. There were 70 people in person at a CPO meeting. It was awesome. So lots of community engagement happening. On President's Day, I'll be with Viva Village. We'll be at the Chamber next month. So we are out and about in the community talking. I will tell you, I've been around a lot of voting questions with the public before, and this one's a little different. You know, the 2008 bond measure is the last time we've been to the voters to talk to people. Bond measures are really fun, and that's one of the things I've heard from the public. They're like, don't we get a new park somewhere? Don't we get? So there's a little bit of an absorption factor that the levy is about maintaining existing service levels. I spend a lot of time in those presentations talking a little bit about tax history, that Measure 50, and a little bit of the history of the budgeting in Oregon. Really important because when you tell that story, it really makes sense. And what I will say is there's a lot of head nodding during the presentations. And I think the people in the audiences really shake out to match what we saw in our public opinion research. There's going to be a slice of the public that is very tax sensitive and does not want to see a tax increase, and they're going to be vocal, and that's understandable. That's where they're at. And then we know that the majority of the public is either in the middle or supportive of the local option levy from our public. And that is really playing out in these presentations. I see a lot of head nodding of understanding the situation. You know, when I talk about assessed value limitations can only grow 3% a year property taxes. And I say to folks, how many people have had their whole household expenses only grow 3% the last few years? Everyone's like, no. So they understand, but there is an absorption factor. So we are out and about in the community and we are talking to folks and we're active. We are also working on all of our public information materials. So I'm giving you tonight just a little bit of a preview. All of what you're seeing are examples of imagery that will be in all of our facilities, that will be banners in all across our fields throughout the district, that will be also matching our digital marketing. So actually, if you look at our website, we loaded today our first video that is a slideshow through some of this imagery, and you could see that as well. And we are in process of translating all of our materials into Spanish as well, and working with our amazing equity and engagement team to get that into community partners' hands. So lots of things in motion. We're trying to tell this story in little small vignettes, really, because THPRD is so diverse in what we do, and because the levy will fund operations and maintain our existing service levels, we have a lot of imagery showing what our staff do every day and how the levy will help fund and maintain all of these different services. And we're working with our amazing building tech crews to make sure that we're putting the right images in the right locations. So you can imagine that if you're picking up your kiddo from a preschool program, you're probably more interested in the preschool messaging. If you're picking up your kid from Thrive After School, you're probably more interested in the Thrive After School messaging, playground messages. So we're really trying to match the services that we're talking about with locations, just so the audience, you know, is more likely to be really receptive to that imagery. So working on all of that. We are also working on our full digital suite. So beginning next week, you will see some pretty robust digital ads going out on multiple platforms. We are working on postcards that will be mailed. We plan on sending 2 district-wide postcards. And I have our updated flyer and copies for all of you. And we will have additional smaller walk-around materials that we will be sharing as well. Now, I know y'all are going to ask me this question, so I want to answer it ahead of time. How can you help? What's the most important thing you can do? We need help getting the word out. So as you see the digital, sharing it on your own social media networks, sharing those messages, talking about it, promoting it. And one of the things that we talked about this week in management team is really discipline and practice that each one of us, when we're out and about, the levy is the first thing we're talking about, and we're thinking to include that in any audience. So for example, Aisha talked about it today with Leadership Beaverton. Doug will be talking about it with Intertwine Alliance. Just practicing that discipline, because in every audience you are in, there's an opportunity to communicate. We're also doing a great job coordinating with our staff. So for example, next week I will be meeting with Aisha and the Park Services team, and we're working with our staff to say, you're ambassadors. You have friends, you have neighbors, you are a THPRD person. They expect you to know things. So making sure our own staff are informed, have the information, know the rules, right? What can I do on the clock as an employee? We can all inform. So that's what we're focused on. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions about the levy update?
I'm just curious if there'll be lawn signs.
Oh, lawn signs? There are yard signs coming that we will be putting up in THPRD facilities. So absolutely, from a public information standpoint, yes.
I'd also be happy to buy one because I have a reputation in my neighborhood.
There you go.
My neighbors count on me. You guys.
Real quick question for me, just social media, is it just our posts, so like organic, or are we yet exploring?
We have a robust advertising budget for public information. So we are putting a good investment in boosting and paid advertisement. Yeah. Very happy with our contribution there.
I have a quick question on the meetings and presentations. You mentioned CPOs and LC Stewart visits. What other populations and groups have we planned to connect with or have connected with already?
Yeah, so I am happy to share a full list with you. So we will absolutely do that. I will ask for your patience and kindness. I'd like to wait another week or two because truly, like, I turned this in yesterday and 4 more books since then. So it's really fast. What I can say, it's all the usual suspects. So like today, one of the ones I added was Beaverton Rotary. So we're going to the Rotary Club. You can think of all the traditional civic organizations that have regular meetings we're going to, but we're also working really strongly with any THPRD affiliations. So for example, Jeff Lee at the Athletic Center invited me to come in and speak with all of our soccer affiliate leads. The LC Stir crew had me come in and speak with folks that were advising the Friends group from different organizations. So we're doing a lot of peer organizations that work with us closely and trying to activate those spaces.
Great. All right. Welcome, Liana. You all are going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. Garden Home Park Dog Run update.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liana. For those of you who I haven't met before, I work in engagement and partnerships for our Park Services Department. But I'm presenting with Holly tonight because our department works in such deep collaboration with communications to do any kind of community engagement for Park Services. And this dog run at Garden Home Park is no exception. And a little context for this particular project. So, of course, our wonderful planning team and management do all the hard work with our advisory committees, trying to figure out where we can put dog parks in the district. And then where we come in is once we have an idea, of where a dog park might go or a dog run might go, then we come in and do the community engagement with that local community. So that's some context for this project. So yeah, we're going to give you an update on Garden Home Park Dog Run, or the potential dog run, as it were. So we got a ton of community comments during community engagement, as you might imagine. So we did our engagement from August to December of 2023. And engagement was twofold. We did virtual engagement, so it looks like an online survey, asking folks, what do they think about a dog run at Garden Home Park? Of course, we engaged folks and did some outreach through social media and some other ways. And really important thing to note is anytime we do project engagement like this, everything that we put out at minimum is bilingual. So everything is in Spanish and English. I didn't note that here, but just I know. And then at minimum, so some projects we do multilingual, depends on the context. So yeah, for our online or virtual engagement, we had 144 responses in our online survey. We also, of course, did some in-person engagement. Getting out into the local community, talking to folks one-on-one, it's always challenge. Tough questions, but fun too. We had a community bark day potty event with 75 or more attendees with the amazing help of our events crew. And we also had a community meeting with more than 40 attendees. Of course, Alfredo knows he was there. Thank you for being there. It's amazing. And with all those interactions, that kind of in-person survey, we had 223 comments. So that's a lot of comments we received from both engagement efforts. And then as a part of that engagement, it's super helpful from our events team. We had a temporary dog run pop-up at the park. It's really helpful for people to see what it might be like to have that dog run at the park while they're giving comments. And then of course, lots of other outreach efforts with CPOs, et cetera. I wanted to make sure to mention that we did lots of tabling of other local events. So that's English speaking events, Spanish speaking events, all those local events that we have in the community, we would visit and talk to folks about.
Okay, before you go to the next slide, I want to give Liana a huge amount of kudos here because she did a lot of homework and curation for us. So you might see 144 or 223 and think, oh, it's not a lot. What she's not telling you is that she curated that down to make those unique comments and unique people, because some of those people contacted us 15 times. No joke. I'm not being excessive. We became really good email buddies with some of the folks in the community. So the volume was much higher. The curation here is making it look smaller than what it felt like. It was voluminous.
Fair enough. Thank you, Holly. So of course, to summarize those comments, we had folks who were really in support, as you might imagine, really excited about improving access to dog runs, creating spaces for them to meet other dogs and other folks in the neighborhood. And then, of course, there are lots of folks who are fearful that parking and traffic would increase, that there'd be more waste, noise, and maintenance needed. And to be candid, these are the comments that we typically expect and we often hear when we go out to talk about dog runs, right? So we expected to hear these, not to say that they aren't important, but what we really wanted to focus on were what are the unique comments, or the comments about the unique site conditions that told us why this particular park and location in the park would or wouldn't be a good match at this time. And so a couple big things we heard were, while some folks might be for or against it, many folks either on both sides felt that a relocation might work better for this dog park, or this dog run, excuse me, because specifically that this area in Garden Home Park is used for so many kind of informal recreational opportunities. People picnicking, throwing a ball, that kind of thing. And it's unique because it's year round. It's one of those spots in the park that really can be used year round for those different activities. So that they really gave us that good feedback that this particular location, they just didn't want us to use it for this purpose right now. The other thing that we heard was a real focus on other improvements to Garden Home Park, the play area and that kind of upper area, really maximizing use of space potentially in the future. So while when we look at all of these comments together, when we had these conversations with management and staff, we really learned that this particular location in this park, what we're hearing from the community is it might not be a good match at this particular time. So really helpful. And I'm going to turn it over to Holly to talk a little bit more about kind kind of how we listened and respond to community throughout the process.
Yeah, so thank you, Liana. So management team discussed it and we ultimately made the decision not to locate the dog run at Garden Home Park. And it really was about, I'm going to use the word you didn't use. We really filter out the more NIMBY arguments, right? We expect people to say, I don't want this in my neighborhood. And we heard a lot of that. It's not surprising. Anytime, dog parks, dog runs, they're always, people want them, but when they hear it's going to be adjacent to their property, it's like, no, I don't want it here. I want it by my neighbor, not by me. So we really tried to filter those out and we really listened deeply and understood that Garden Home Park is very wet. The one spot we were looking at for the dog park or dog run, which is the only spot that would work, would take away that one space that isn't soggy. And so it was not a good location. So we really wanted to explain to the neighborhood. They did a good job articulating why this wasn't a good fit based on the uniqueness of the site conditions here. It was not an NIMBY issue. The second thing I want to say is that I think THPRD in the past might have considered this not a success. Like we didn't cite the dog run. I would argue from a community engagement perspective, I think it was a home run. And here's why. We did what we promised to do. We did the outreach, we asked the neighborhood, we listened to all perspectives, we did it respectfully, and we truly made the best decision we could based on the information we gathered. And that for me is a home run as a community engagement professional. We also were adaptive. And I believe this is something that I feel like an alien sometimes on this topic, but I really do not like prescriptive public engagement. If anyone shows me a checklist and says, these are the things you must do, I say, did you actually look at the uniqueness of the project, the location, the community? Because I don't want to make my list until I do my homework and I understand those things, because you have to use different tactics to reach different populations. So I am not a fan of that approach. And what I loved about what we did here is that we listened to the community. So Joyce and David were folks that we heard from a lot, and they emailed us and said, why did you not do a formal meeting? We expect a formal meeting. Now, you'll remember a few years back, I wanted to say, stop these formal meetings. Only 6 people come. It's really benefits dominant culture, and we need to go out into the community. And I really believe our approach of going out in the community to events gives us much richer, much better information and allows us to reach populations we rarely hear from on decisions because they don't go to formal meetings, right? So I don't want to see our approach change. But I love that we respected what we heard from the neighbors and we did a formal meeting. And I have to say that formal meeting restored my faith in public process at a time in America where I didn't know that was possible. Because what we had was a respectful meeting. It was run on time. It ended on time. Everyone respected their time limits and everyone was nice to each other. And we set the ground rules. We were like, you might be in this room because you think the dog run is awesome. And you might be in this room because you think it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard. And we're okay with both perspectives. What we're not okay with is being disrespectful to each other. So let's everybody know, you're going to get called up. You're all going to have the same amount of time. Let's not clap. Let's not cheer. Let's not, make people feel othered. Let's just listen to each other. And we had people speak on both sides of that issue next to each other. We called them up in groups of 3 and they had to share the mic down because we wanted to make it so efficient. And you could see a person who was pro, who's passing it on and smiling and being nice to a person who was con next to them. And I told that room, I was like, y'all have restored my faith that it is possible in Beaverton, Oregon to still have respectful dialogue and public process. The other thing I want to say is having our board president there was outstanding. And Alfredo did something I've not seen an elected official do before. He stood at the entrance and he personally welcomed and thanked every participant who showed up. And that made a big difference. They really appreciated that level of engagement. And I've never had a public meeting like that, where people were so actively on different sides that on the way out the door, no joke, a third of the people stopped to say, thank you so much, staff. This was a great meeting. Good job. So, they left feeling heard, left feeling respected, and it didn't matter what side of the issue they were on. So I think we did it right. I've gotten the question, does this mean you're going to add formal meetings for the future? And what is my answer? No, unless it's asked for, but it's part of our process to be adaptive and flexible on each project and each community and do it that way.
Yeah.
We're done.
Just if there were any questions.
Colleagues, questions, comments?
All of my questions were answered along the way, so thank you so much. In terms of comments, I love presentations like this, very informative. The little dog pics are not a bad way to, have a presentation either. They're adorable.
All right. Just sincere appreciation for Holly, your leadership, and Liana. Every time you're here, you're teaching us something new. And yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here just like, oh, we need a Holly in the work that I do, because it is a combative time, and things like a dog park can rally people up, right? One thing that I'm sort of thinking about is I want us to have more dog parks. Considering the size of our district, that it's growing, we do need more. I'm mindful of how it makes people feel to have one coming in next door. And I'm very mindful that some people are terrified of dogs. These are not cute creatures to a lot of people, and I respect that. So one of the things that I'm just sort of thinking through is, like, as the city of Beaverton expands, as things expand, like, what does it mean to, like, decide early on that we want to put a dog park there, in thinking that, like, as the community grows around it, they know that there's going to be a dog park there. So part of me feels like that's not sincere, because it's not how we have been doing things. I don't know. It's just something that's coming to mind of, like, I would understand it might be easier to navigate, able to get more dog parks in the district that we need if we were to build them in areas that we're still developing.
I'd like to respond.
Yes, please. Make me better, Holly.
It's good, but it takes leadership, and it's going to take your involvement. So forgive me for what I'm about to say. I think you're right. Absolutely. It's easier to put a dog park or a dog run in an undeveloped site that doesn't have it yet because it's introduced to it. But that's not what we need to focus on. We need to do that, of course. Absolutely. But we don't have a lot of new sites to develop and add them to. And we have a lot of existing properties that really need one, right? So yes, we need to do what you're saying. 100%. Totally agree. But we need to continue our effort, and our greatest potential for expansion of meeting the community's needs is to continue our effort on dog runs. But right now we're between a rock and a hard spot, because the only dog runs that we are going to focus on are in unincorporated Washington County. And that's what's such a bummer about losing Garden Home Park. There's not another site in this area that works that isn't in the city of Beaverton. And until the city of Beaverton changes their code to address the issues around dog runs, we're not going to put one in there. We're following the recommendation of our Parks and Facilities Advisory Committee that said it shouldn't cost twice as much to do a dog run in the city of Beaverton. And it's a very challenging position to be in, to explain to the public as a partner agency. We've tried. We've communicated, we've talked to staff, we've talked to electeds, we've sent letters from our advisory committee that have said, please change your code, because we can't afford to pay double. We can't afford to do traffic studies and pay for things. We don't need process for process sake when it's just standing in our way. So it's an issue the city's aware of. It's an issue that we've heard that they know they need to clean up. It's something that always falls off the to-do list and doesn't make it on the get it done list. When that happens, that will make a huge difference for us in expanding these. So, what's the number one priority from my perspective? Let's work with the city and get that code updated, and let's go have these conversations in more areas.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the shout out. I will say you did a nice job of maybe the spirit of the meeting was wonderful. This was not a low pulse meeting though. So I will commend the staff. It required careful responses and organization and sometimes some reminders of the rules that we had all kind of agreed to in spirit. This was not, as you said, like a by the numbers thing where we just showed up and went through the motions. I spoke on this in the last meeting, so I don't want to go over it too much, but just the passion and there was somebody from every demographic in the neighborhood for and against. Younger folks, older folks, single folks, married folks, homeowners, renter, there was always, it was hard to say only these people are for, only these people are against, but I too was surprised when I saw the announcement that the district was not choosing to run through, and I too got a little smile on my face. I said, I think they looked at that. What was the core argument that was hard to overcome is that what the park itself was allowing to be done. And so I shared your kind of your sentiment that, I kind of thought they would just do it anyway, but they really did listen and consolidate and listen to that feedback. So it is not low labor work to make people feel heard and that their voice really mattered. So thank you all for doing that. And thank you for not saying you're going to do it every single time, because it's life in this work is about nuance and kind of a yes and approach at times. And look forward to next time we're able to help out. So thank you. We will roll on to our next group, Adaptive and Inclusion Services, Emily, Juan, and Jared, and one of the 100 students he owns.
Thank you. Thank you, board, for having us here tonight. I'm Juan Calles. I'm the Assistant Center Supervisor at the Altice Third Center and the Garden Home Recreation Center with Jared Grappenauer. He's our Adaptive and Inclusion Specialist, and Emily Kent, our Sports and Inclusion Manager. And we're here to provide an update on a program that embodies the essence of inclusivity and support the THPRD Adaptive and Inclusive Services. Excuse me. This program isn't just a support program for individuals experiencing disability. It's a lifeline for individuals that helps them be part of our community from preschool age all the way through adulthood. What makes this program indispensable is its ability to meet people where they are. It recognizes that each individual has unique needs and challenges, and we tailor our services to meet them accordingly. Whether it's our Thursday night All-Stars at the Athletic Center, whether it's Adaptive PE at the Garden Home Recreation Center, or one of our programs that we're doing with our partners, we try to meet our community where they're at. Regardless of their abilities, we want them to have an opportunity to thrive and participate in what THPRD has to offer. But then there's a why. Why do we do the work that we're doing? It's important because it transcends more than mere recreation. It's about fostering a sense of belonging and empowerment. It's about providing individuals with the tools and support they need to live fulfilling lives and recreate alongside their peers. By breaking down barriers and creating inclusive spaces, we not only enrich the lives of the individuals who participate, but we also believe it enriches the lives of the community as a whole. And with that, I would do want to pass along to Jared to talk more specifically about the program.
Thank you, Juan. My name is Jared Grappenauer. I'm the Adaptive and Inclusion Specialist here at the district. And I'm going to talk to you about the services and programs that we provide for individuals who have disabilities throughout the district. First and foremost is one of our biggest services is inclusion services. So this is free individualized support. We can send a one-on-one support staff to individuals who have disabilities who sign up for any program throughout our district. So this is a district-wide program. Any center, any program that we have, we can provide this service if they qualify. So some of the things we can do, behaviors, we can help with behaviors and programs, transitions, adapting activities, As you can also see, providing resources like tents and fidgets to individuals to give them what they need to be successful in the program. This past year in 2023, we provided 4,030 hours of inclusion services in programs throughout the district. And so far in the small sample size of 24, we're on track to over double that this year. So we're getting the word out a little more, and we're really excited about the things we're doing. The financial impact for the district, since it is a free program, we are fully supported by the district. So thank you. And that's important because without that, a lot of the families who would want to use these services, they have to pay the fee for the program. But a fee on top, extra fee on top of that, it might prevent them from participating in our program. This also comes with a lot of challenges and barriers in this field. Capacity is one of those things, and this for inclusion services and for the other programs I'm going to talk about, we only have 2 full-time staff, me and our adaptive and inclusion aide, Beth Imus. We have to work district-wide with all the centers. We have duties at the center we're located at. We have to build the trust with families so they can trust us with helping their kid be successful in the program. And also in this field in general, there's a lot of staff burnout and staff turnover. So dealing with that and keeping things staffed so we actually have this program to provide families. So with those barriers and challenges, you may be thinking, hopefully not, but why do we provide the service? It's for families like this. This is part of an email that I received. Says this program is probably one of the most important services my daughter receives in her life. It is the difference between, especially for this family and family like them, it's the difference between being able to participate and have access to our programs or not. The next program I'm going to talk about is our summer camp for individuals with disabilities, Camp Rivendell. This camp has been going on for quite some time. It had taken couple of years off due to the pandemic. So we were really excited to bring it back. In 2023, over the weeks that we provided it, we had 167 campers. And like I just mentioned, the impact of the pandemic shut the camp down. And also when we brought it back, we were unable to do things like field trips and have some of those experiences that they were used to due to transportation not being available, budget stuff. So one of the things that we really focused on is how do we keep that spirit of the camp and keep giving a good experience to the people who use it. Some things that we did are bring outside organizations into our camp. So we have had a caricature artist, we've had a drama group come and do a performance. As you can see on the pictures, we have baby goats come every year, and that's definitely not something that I think we're going to be allowed to stop from the kids. And very exciting that we are also bringing 1 field trip back per week this year. We've worked with the Harmon Swim Center to go to the pool one field trip a week for the camp. And another quote from a email I received: for our family, Rivendell has been exactly what we needed, a place where Abigail can just be herself and is embraced as the wonderful, unique person that she is. Same kind of thing with inclusion. A lot of the people, those 167 participants, a lot of them are returners from Camp Rivendell, because a lot of the time this may be the only camp that they're comfortable in, that their family is comfortable sending them to. Then we have also our therapeutic recreation programs. These are programs that we create and run specifically for individuals with disabilities. So we have 7 unique programs: an adult therapeutic rec program, a teen program, a yoga program, a basketball. We also partner with organizations to provide wheelchair basketball space, an adaptive sports center, and also adaptive aquatics in there. That is led by program specialist Jill Coyle at Harmon Swim Center. And they provide safe opportunities for individuals with disabilities to learn how to swim and learn water safety with one-on-one support. The great thing about adaptive aquatics and what they're doing is they're actively figuring out how to expand that throughout the district, because that is a very big and popular program, and there's a lot of people who want to use that program. So figuring out how we can get it across the district and offer that everywhere. Same thing with our programs. So first of all, in 2023, we served 1,701 participants through these 7 programs. And, with that, it's great, but we're also looking to expand. And however, with expansion comes challenges to expanding these programs. One of them, there's a lot of considerations week in and week out to make, to be intentional for offering these programs for people with disabilities. And we're constantly having to revise programs each week and adjust the participants we have coming into those programs. One example of this is the All-Star basketballs run at the Athletic Center on Thursday nights. When we brought that back from COVID and started offering that again, we were having 4 to 8 participants per night. And lately in the last couple months, we've had up to 30 or 40 participants, so much that we're having to try to revise our games, offer more games, to make sure everybody gets the same playing opportunities as they expect. And now I'll pass it along to Emily Kent, our Sports and Inclusion Manager.
Thank you for having us here tonight. Like Jared said, I'm the Sports and Inclusion Manager, and I have the absolute pleasure of working with this team and helping watch them grow these programs and bring them back to life, and it's been really fun. And anything we do, we can't do anything without partnerships. Like Jared said, there's only 2 full-time staff. They have a great group of part-time staff, but we need district-wide support. So there's a lot of internal partnerships that we work with. You can see up there, we listed just a few. One I want to really bring to light is our maintenance teams. And they may not be ones often people think about in this line of work, but just knowing that this work is so ingrained throughout the district that our maintenance folks are often coming up with accessibility concerns. And knowing and researching the ADA code and making sure that our participants can have safe and accessible facilities. And so I definitely wanted to bring them up, and that they are integral to this work as well when they see patrons that may have challenges beyond what they're required to do, coming to the table with new ideas on how to make these spaces safe. So lots of internal workings. Externally, we have some great partners we've been excited to bring back over the last couple of years. Autism Society of Oregon, we work with our spring celebration, doing that again in March. We had over 400 participants last year. So looking to do that out of Mountain View Champions Park. Working with Special Olympics of Oregon, they were able to bring back their fall state games over the last couple of years. And so they are now actually using our facilities for volleyball, swimming, softball, and bocce. So helping support them. And it's not just when the games take place, but working for them, for their athletes to participate in practice. So it's one of their biggest challenges. Is a lot of people like the show of the state games, but it's that behind the scenes giving access throughout the year to give spaces to practice that we've been focusing on with them. One of the new partnerships externally is actually a lease group at Garden Home Recreation Center in the Estuary Center. We have been working with them to provide programs on site at Garden Home for their participants to be involved in. They are open to the public like anything else, but starting out, being able to have a group that already wants the program and will guarantee to bring them allows us to offer programs and then offer it to the community in a successful way. So partnerships is a big way that we have been expanding this work. A couple of things I want to talk about is funding. That's, it's never pretty to talk about funding, and wanting to know that this work is expensive work, but it's not a burden. We love this work. We so appreciate the board in setting this in a priority through the work that we do. But it does come with a cost. Like Jared had mentioned, we had 4,000 hours of inclusion services. Well, that comes with a $100,000 price tag. We are looking to potentially double that going into next year. So you can see what those numbers start to have. What I've provided is actually a program hours versus staff hours comparison. And something that is unique about these programs is our ratios. So the part-time staff required to run these programs is at a higher level than what we would offer in an after-school program. After-school programs and camps, you're looking at a 1-to-10 ratio of participant to staff. We're looking at a 1-to-3. And depending on the program, inclusion services is a 1-on-1. So just looking at the gray line across the middle is our 2 full-time staff. We have 2 full-time staff, no matter how much work there is to be done. They've done a phenomenal job growing these programs. And you can see our part-time staff does go up as program hours go up, but we have looked over the last 3 years of doubling program hours and part-time staff hours
every year over the last 3 years. So looking at how do we long-term fund these programs and give opportunity to expand, what's the capacity of our own full-time staff and what they can support. It's exciting to see those numbers grow, but looking at how we can support that long-term. Some of the things that we have done is working with Twelton Hills Park Foundation. They've always been a huge supporter of these programs, helping do free events like the spring celebration, and then also working with Camp Rivendell to help bring back some of the field trips and doing those supports. Unfortunately, we did lose a longtime grant. We were getting $10,000 a year from One Young Trust. That trust is no longer doing those type of grants and that work. So we'll be working a lot with the foundation to look at new funding strategies and what we can do to continue to support this work. One other piece that we're doing, which is kind of nuanced, but the adaptive and inclusive budget has been residing within the athletic center for the last few years. The staff was carried out of there, and that's how the budget was set up. We are actually pulling that out so we can very specifically see the impacts of these programs and what we need to do specifically to support these going on to make sure that we have funding for them. So that'll be coming up in the next year, and we'll be able to see some differences. With that, just looking ahead, expanded offerings. Jared and his team are doing a great job being creative, offering an inclusive art event. They've expanded into the teen TR programs, which is something we have a hard time reaching teens across the district in all areas, so that they are doing that reach out. And in fact, shared a picture with me tonight. Anzi is bringing up a blow up whale to teen night tonight. There is a whale in Stewart Center tonight for this program. It is very cool. You have to look at his pictures at the end of the meeting. So always looking to expand offerings and what we can do there. Different opportunities. We recently have been approached by a couple of outside organizations who specialize in this work but don't have facilities. Well, we have facilities, but not always the capacity to expand work. So we are working with a couple organizations to see if we can partner there to see what we can do. Don't know what that will look like yet, but we are always looking at different ways. And then one final piece, very exciting, and something that Juan and Jared worked at as soon as they started working together and brought to the table is inclusion is now at Centro de Bienvenida. That is something that was like a light bulb moment of course, this is a group of individuals who should get the one-on-one help. They need schedules for their families and participants to be successful in our programs, and they should get that priority registration. So first time we did it was winter term. They got 10 families right out of the gate. Looking forward to next week doing it again for spring. So a lot of fun things on the horizon and a lot of good work yet to be done. And with that, just one last quote. This came out of our spring celebration last year, and just realizing and remembering that the impacts often start young, and participants like these are often lifelong participants in these programs. So if we can make positive impacts at 3 and 4 years old, these are participants we will likely see all the way through, and just making sure, and always nice for staff to know that the efforts put in are reaching the individuals the way that we'd like to. So. Any discussion?
Thank you. I open it up as always.
Honestly, I wanted to clap. That was like my. I know, wonderful. Like, this is always, well, this is in any situation, very important to our community, to our district. But I also think about my own like family and personal experiences. I have a nephew who's autistic, and being like able to go to a space like this over the summer would be incredible for him. So I'm gonna have to bus him up here from Bigmanville. No one heard. But no, incredible work. I am so excited to see this level of engagement. And also I love the idea about partnering with outside organizations that have the capacity to do it, but don't have the facilities. I know some amazing groups like Adventures Without Limits and things like that. So it'll be really cool to see how our district is able to partner with these organizations to do additional programming for our community members. So thank you so much.
I echo the appreciation and sentiment.
Amazing. Amazing. The one thing that comes up for me is for us, like a year or so ago, we did a disability justice training, and I would love to do that again, because I think as we continue to grow and push ourselves, and it's access is a big priority here, which is wonderful. And how can we go beyond that towards justice and inclusion? And so to me, it's an opportunity for us to push ourselves, be better. And of course, it's our values that guide budgeting and policy. So I would love to do that again. And thanks for your work.
Quick question, Camp Rivendell ages, what are they?
Yep, we have 2 age ranges. We have 6 to 12, and then 13 to 21, and we do 3 weeks of those each, and then we do an adult week at the end as well. Yeah, so 21 plus.
Good to know. I really appreciate that. Yeah, no, thank you so much. This was awesome. Again, really glad that Gina's here to hear this stuff as you discuss working, because these, the quotes you put up there, the quote about Abigail, right, is, I mean, these are the stories that folks can rally behind with energy and finances. So, and these, I think, are the things that we can articulate and share. And I think you'll find, I would hope in this community, people would be willing to rally behind and support. So, yeah, I'm again glad we have somebody who's here who knows a little something about the art of storytelling in the right way to help out. So, look forward to seeing what we can do to keep up the great work in the meantime. And thank you all for being here to present and inspire us as always. So, thank you very much.
Can I get your slides? In fact, I like the whole presentation. Thanks.
Good. Thank you. We're on to agenda item number 9. 25 minutes behind. Gosh. Okay, it's been things don't always go like that. I have a long attitude. Okay, legislative update.
Yes, so I am joined virtually by Kylie tonight. As we commented during our legislative committee meeting for ORPA, Oregon Recreation and Park Association this morning, or this midday, we meet at lunch. That is not ideal, but it is when we can get people into the meeting. But as we mentioned during that today, things are off to the races with the legislative session. This is a short session this year, so things are happening really, really quickly, things we care about deeply. And Kylie was down in Salem. She is still down in Salem. I hope she's not actually moving, but we don't know.
Driving, I would
don't know. We may want her to go camera off for our anxiety levels. But she was meeting with legislators down in Salem this evening. So that is why she's not able to be here in person. So I will turn things over to her and she will let me know when to advance the slides on her behalf. Kylie.
Thank you, Aisha. And so I am in the car, I am not driving, and we're actually going to be pulling over here momentarily within minutes. So hopefully that'll be a better internet connection because I'm tethered through my phone. So if anything's wonky, please let me know. And Aisha was spot on by saying that things are off to the races. So if we can go to the next slide. I just wanted to start by going over kind of the legislative calendar. So if you look at these dates, you can see that basically there's a week between the deadlines that normally in a regular long session, we have months, 2.5 months, somewhere around there. So everything is very, very compressed. And there's some really big pieces of legislation that are before the legislature, the governor's housing proposal. There's the addiction and community response that has to do with the ballot measure 110. Some really meaty pieces of legislation that are really complex that we're having to do in a really compressed time frame. So I just wanted to share this calendar with you so you kind of see the deadlines and the dates that we're up against. We're already, this Monday will be the deadline for bills to get out of their original chamber. So every day it feels is kind of like 20 days. I don't know, where it's a fun time. So we can go to the next slide. So I also wanted to give just a brief overview of kind of the big issues before the legislature right now. Primary issues are housing. I'm sure you've read articles and seen the different proposals coming from the governor and different investment packages and those kind of efforts. So I just wanted to list some of those things that are happening. There was just an article today and information from the governor's office about the amounts that she had hoped to go for as far as investments in housing and homelessness and the unhoused that have been adjusted by the legislature, but it remains to be seen what those will ultimately be. So we're tracking those really closely. There's also the Joint Committee on Addiction and Community Safety, which is really taking on the ballot measure 110 conversation in a really deep and meaningful way. So I'm also tracking that really closely. And the bills that I'm tracking for THPRD on that really have to do with how to address and handle use in public spaces. And so those haven't really been taken up yet, a lot of those bills, because they're being wrapped into the bigger conversation. That is still being negotiated, what that looks like. They did their unveiling of the general kind of program and what they were thinking, but there's a lot of details that are still being worked out. And I think that also goes to into what we've heard about the housing investments, because there's a lot of investment that's going to have to go into how do we ensure folks are getting into treatment around addiction and recovery services and what that system will look like for our state. So a couple other key points. There's been about just under 300 bills introduced to date. We still expect a few more maybe to trickle in. I wanted to highlight that about 25% of those bills have been placeholders, which means that they are, you still got me okay?
Yes.
Just kidding. Okay, we're just getting ready to park it, so I will no longer be moving, and everybody's anxiety level, I'll be in one spot. So the other piece is just how many placeholders there were, because those placeholders essentially have a relating to clause that is fairly broad. And so different issues can be put into that bill through amendment. In longer sessions, a lot of times when those amendments come forward, we then have a public hearing. We'll have a public hearing on the base bill, but then as amendments come forward, we'll also have the opportunity as the public to testify or do whatever on those amendments. In the short session, we're not having as much of an opportunity to review those amendments. So a lot of the times those will come forward in a work session at which they do not have to take public testimony. So keeping track of those, staying on top of what those look like is significant and challenging, and that there's so many of those opportunities for that type of process is challenging. So that's one of the other things we're having to track. So overall, I've got about 118 bills that I'm tracking, and about 23 are the ones that are of priority for THPRD. And so if we can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to remind everyone, and also anytime if somebody would like to stop me, questions, if I said something too fast or if I use an acronym, which sometimes I do and I find super annoying when other people do it, stop me, raise your hand. I'm happy to go through what that is. I just wanted to offer a reminder of our state priorities that you as a board decided on, and I use those as my direction with Aisha and then Doug to navigate the landscape down in Salem around the bills that are coming forward. So these are the big buckets that I look to for direction. And then if you go to the next slide. So these are kind of the top issues for THPRD so far. So the first one, recreational immunity. It's a very hot topic, and there's lots of activity on this bill even right now. So we had THPRD as part of a larger coalition of other stakeholders from cities and counties and trail groups and the Oregon Coast Visitors Association to intertwine to all kinds of groups that it's okay. It's all right. Here, you can just turn the car off. Hold on one second. There, you're good. We're all good. I'm parked. I'm no longer driving. I was not ever driving, and the driver has now exited the car. Joined a large coalition. We worked on an amendment to a large omnibus bill. So it had a very large relating to clause to civil law matters. And so it's got 3 separate issues that it deals with, and the other 2 are not really of concern to THPRD. But the recreational immunity part was addressed through an amendment to the bill, and it basically provides a very short-term fix for concerns that have arisen from a court case that called into question recreational immunity. And the 2 pieces that we as a group identified as being key is defining recreational purposes in the statute to be more specific, because right now one could think that it includes these, but really calling out the fact that biking, walking, and running counts as recreation. And so clarifying that, and then also adding that whether it's an approved trail or an unapproved trail, both are under recreational immunity. We had a great hearing, lots of good testimony about what that means and why that's important, and how the insurer for city and county parks has actually issued the advisory to close trails, and some, especially along the coast. I think we've seen about 22 trails yesterday that have closed, and that's it's a little over 100 miles or almost 100 miles of trails that have been closed due to this. And so that insurance group actually reviewed the amendment language that we were putting forward and said that if that were to be adopted, they would rescind their advisory, so that they would no longer say that trails need to be closed. Yeah. So and the only Lawyers Association.
Sorry,
are
Kylie.
working on that. Yes.
Kylie, you broke up a little bit there. What she was saying is that the insurer for cities and counties took a look at the proposed amendment and said that if that amendment were to get into the bill, they would rescind their guidance to cities and counties that currently they're saying close your trails. So that was a good news story. So maybe we can try the bandwidth thing again.
So I haven't moved. Is it better now? Like I'm in one location. Can you hear me?
Give it a shot.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me better if I turn my camera off?
We can hear you.
Okay, then I will go with it. So yes, Aisha hit it nail on the head. As of today, there was another amendment that was introduced to our piece of the bill that removes that addition to or clarification to the definition that would include running, biking, and walking. That is troublesome, problematic. It would cause the insurance group that to perhaps not rescind their advisory. And so we are working with the stakeholder group to help negotiate with the folks about the language that must be included, acknowledging and really reinforcing the fact that this is also intended to be a short-term fix. The bill has a sunset date. It would only be operative through January 2nd, 2026, in order to require and compel folks to a longer term conversation about recreational immunity over the interim. So we have more meaningful, not compressed in a short session kind of conversation. So that is a developing story. And we're working really hard to make sure that we get the kind of assurances we need across the board for Parks and Recs groups to be able to keep their trails and lands open throughout the coming summer season. Can you hear me okay? Did that all come through? Marvelous. So that bill could have a hearing tomorrow, but we're trying to work on tweaking that amendment so it may not move until Monday. Summer learning funding, we actually submitted a letter on the record about that. It doesn't, the way in which that funding is going to come through is no longer to nonprofits and entities like Parks and Rec and THPRD. It's through school districts, but we're able to work with a sponsor and get it on record that this is intended to be and include partners like THPRD with your local school district. So that was a win. So we acknowledge that this funding is meant to go through school districts and include partnerships with like Beaverton and THPRD. That has moved out of committee and is down in Ways and Means for them to determine how much funding they'll actually put in that work. There is a bill that has to do with creating a task force around micromobility and e-bikes. It has a hearing tomorrow afternoon. We are submitting another letter to support a task force to look at, study, think about, talk about best practices about the use of e-bikes in lots of different contexts, but also on trails and in and out of trails that are in an urban environment. Originally, the task force did not include a local Parks and Rec representative. We've been able to work with the sponsor of that bill to get a representative on that task force. So our letter is clarifying our support for both the task force and thinking about e-bikes and what the kind of complex regulations that may be required, but also making sure that our perspective is one of the ones that's taken into consideration on the task force. Like I said, that has a hearing tomorrow afternoon. As I mentioned, all hearings on all these bills, there's a Monday deadline. So there's everything is kind of it's a very urgent couple of weeks. We also have the Representative Helm wildlife package. In previous sessions, we have not lended our logo or advocacy along these lines because he really focused on wildlife corridors, which we see more in like Eastern or Southern Oregon about how do we make sure that there's highways and different things that are have some of the different and newer tools around wildlife safety around highways. His newer bill includes some grant funding opportunities around invasive species, sudden oak death, some different things that we know matter in our district. as well as a wildlife interface. Like, how do we support the interfaces where we know wildlife and humans are coming into contact, and provide some programming support and technical assistance around those. So we added our logo to that. And then the last one has to do with SDCs, which is a perennial topic of interest for THPRD. There's really one bill right now that I'm thinking of when I added this. It has to do, it's House Bill 4099. And it was introduced by Representative Gamba, who's a former mayor of Milwaukee. And this idea is that if a city chooses to defer collection of their SDCs through occupancy, that if the developer does not pay by a certain date, the state will step in, pay the city for that deferral, and then it will be upon the state to collect that. We have really not engaged in this because it's really it's an optional program for cities. But more importantly, one, I'm not sure it'll actually be able to get the funding needed to create the pot that's required for that program to work. And two, of all of the various SDC options that are out there, this one is one that it's the lesser of the many evils that could come. And so watching how this one goes, and we've been in close contact with the city of Beaverton and their lobbyists. This is not a priority for them, and already recognizing that were they to ever choose to use this kind of tool, that we'd be in close contact about what that means and what that looks like. So those are those bills. And then the next slide, opening up to Q&A and discussion. I realize I talk fast. I'm sorry I'm not on camera. I'll try again. I thought being still would make my connection better, but maybe it actually made it worse.
We can hear you. We're getting all the information. So anything else from you, Aisha? Or okay. Any questions for Kylie?
Hi, Kylie. Miles here. Thank you so much for this rundown of what we've got going on this legislative session. Today, when I was in the Capitol, I bumped into Mayor Beatty, and it just made me think a little bit about, is there any space for us board directors to engage in the conversations that you're having? Would it be helpful for us to come down and I like field trips? And seeing if maybe we can come and visit and talk about some of these priorities with members. Or maybe that's something we push into another session. But
we generally do. We absolutely have actually in the last couple of longer sessions done a THPRD lobby day where we do that and we visit with all of the THPRD legislative delegation and really focus on our highlights. We hadn't focused on the short session just because it is so crazy. And I also saw Mayor Beatty, and I'm sorry that I missed you. I must have missed you in the hallway. And I know she's down there talking about some very specific things that have to do with the governor's housing bill and some different components that are critical to the city of Beaverton. So I would hate to have you drive down there because things are so crazy, and what we think is going to be up one day, it gets postponed to the next, and you know how that goes. Like in this short session, because of some of the big complex things, I was just reticent to have you come down, and just the way the schedule is. But I absolutely intend, and we've done it the last couple of sessions, and it's been amazing to have as many board members as can come down, and we hit up all of the different legislators. We hit up the legislative leadership to really go through what our priorities for that session are. So I wasn't planning on doing it during the short session just because of the frantic nature of it, but I will absolutely tap you and want you to come down and do a field trip where I feel like I walk you crazy, which again, Miles, you and your board members are now getting a taste of, but probably not for the short session, but for the long session for sure. Though, depending on what happens with recreational immunity and where that goes to, I may be eating my words and calling some of you and saying, we actually do need you, like tomorrow or, whenever that is. So I appreciate that offer, and I will absolutely be taking you up on it.
Well, I'll just add that I think town halls are like a critical piece that a way for us to engage this year. They're very accessible. They're often very not very well attended. And so you can really stand out and have a lot of one-on-one time with the legislator. And so I love town halls, and I would encourage my peers to go to town halls, especially it's kid friendly, it's free, or most of them are. Some are even virtual, so yay. And I don't have any questions. Surprise. There you go.
So Felisa, I would love to, do you want me to work with, so I get notifications of those, so I can actually start, and I'm sorry that I haven't thought to do this before, but start to send this to maybe through Aisha or whomever to kind of share those town halls if you don't already have those notices coming from the various
Let's say that
legislators.
I'm already being annoying and doing that.
Okay, awesome. Awesome.
Okay, thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Aisha. Appreciate your time. Sorry for the delay.
Okay, thank you so much for the time. Thank you.
All right. All right. We're on to item B. Gary and Peter, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Gary Keck, the Planning and Development Manager, and with me is Peter Swinton, our Urban Planner. And tonight we're here to give you an update on the Metro's Community Choice Grants Program. There's no action being requested tonight.
Click into the space. And then hit the arrow.
Thank you. So as many of you may recall, in 2019, Metro passed a $475 million bond. It was their Parks and Nature's bond, which included 6 programs to protect clean water, restore fish and wildlife habitat, and create opportunities to connect people to nature close to home. Within that bond, there was a $40 million pot that came out of that for Metro's Nature in the Neighborhoods Capital Grants program. And Metro was to develop a participatory grant-making pilot project. It's a lot of words. They have now called that program the Community Choice Grants Program. And the pilot program is designating $2 million of the 40 for capital projects to invest in community identified, designed, and selected projects. And eligible projects have to align with the bond's values and the Nature in the Neighborhood capital grant program. The grants range from $10,000 on the low end up to $250,000 on the high end. And this first round of the Community Choice Grants program is focused on Metro's Council District 4. And to fulfill the participatory grant-making intent within the bond, Metro convened a community-led design and review committee to develop and to refine the program. They also partnered with jurisdictions like THPRD that would likely be responsible for implementing the projects and maintaining them once they're built. Metro did hire a consultant. The name of the firm is Knot Studio, and they assisted with the community engagement to solicit ideas from the community, as well as develop initial project designs with the community and to work with us jurisdictions to make sure that they're feasible projects. So while piloting the participatory grant making approach, the community choice grant program wanted to further their bond and their Nature in the Neighborhoods capital grant program criteria as well. Projects that were eligible for funding had to satisfy those criteria that related to community engagement and racial equity and climate resilience, including bond projects meaningfully engaging to prioritize needs identified of communities of color, indigenous communities, people with low incomes, and other historically marginalized communities in the planning, the development, and the selection of the projects. We were also looking at projects that protect and connect and restore habitat and create easy access to the outdoors from transit stations, walking or biking. Now here you can see Metro Council District 4 outlined there in yellow. This is the focus area for the first year, the pilot program for the Community Choice Grant Program. It spans from Forest Grove on the west all the way over to Beaverton and our northern boundary on the east. And additionally, this is Metro's map that includes the Community Vulnerability Index, and in alignment with the bond values, of racial equity and meaningful engagement, the program sought to make extra effort to engage and to identify projects within these areas. So the timeline that we've been working through, we became involved back in the summer and fall of 2022 when Metro approached us. The pilot program kicked off in earnest during the winter of 2023, and THPRD worked with Metro to engage district patrons and solicit the initial suite of ideas. There were over 120 that came in originally. And then over the summer of 2023, THPRD worked with Metro on the community design workshops and the community vote to refine that list down to a slate of 50 projects. And THPRD played a real pivotal role in that next phase where we helped refine the projects. We worked with our internal teams. We had our maintenance staff, program staff, nature and trails staff, and planning and development work together to find sites for some of the ideas. Some of them were just ideas, and we were trying to find sites that were within District 4 and that we owned that could take the project. And then we also assessed the feasibility of the projects as well. And of the 50 projects identified, they had a second round of voting, and they brought the projects down to 28 that were voted down to. Of the 28, 9 were within THPRD's boundaries. Then in December, they met with the committee again, and the committee refined the projects down to, I think, 13 total. Made it 12. 3 of them are ours. So we made 3 of the 12, which was great. And right now, that committee, they made the recommendation in December to the Metro Council. Metro Council was going to approve it during the ice storm, but they had to push. So next week, Metro's on having a meeting that they will make the decision to approve the project list or not. So what I'll do is I'll pass it to Peter, and he's going to go through the engagement and the 3 projects that we have.
Metro and Knott Studios developed the Community Choice Grant Engagement Strategy in collaboration with THPRD and other jurisdictional partners. The engagement strategy leveraged existing THPRD patron and partner relationships to generate potential project ideas. To ensure equity guided the engagement process, Metro made special efforts to engage communities of color, Indigenous communities, and people with low incomes. This engagement process also satisfied specific 2019 Parks and Nature bond funding criteria. Engagement opportunities included in-person workshops and tabling at THPRD and other community events, as well as online venues where participants could submit ideas and provide feedback. To engage community members to participate and collaborate, Metro provided food, auditory and visual ways, and tactile ways to engage with the idea generation and refinement process, live interpretation support in multiple languages, and activities for kids. In addition to this engagement, Metro consulted with THPRD and other implementing jurisdictions on the feasibility of moving forward with community identified project ideas, and THPRD advanced to the community vote only those ideas staff felt the district could feasibly develop and maintain long term. Though not all the ideas were recommended for funding, those projects included in the community vote were identified by Metro as strong candidates for their Nature and Neighborhoods Capital Grants program, providing another way THPRD can pursue funding for patron-identified ideas. The first of 3 projects that were recommended for funding, here you see the To Make It All Good Again project at the Nature Park. This was the #1 project in vote-getting project across District 4, so we're very happy about that. This project focuses on trail accessibility, maintenance, and restoration at the Nature Park. It also proposes performing native plant restoration and the installation of interpretive signage along trails to inform visitors about the natural area, as well as the importance and use of various plants to Indigenous peoples. To implement this project, THPRD would need to collaborate with an Indigenous community partner who could work to develop the interpretive content with us. THPRD's match for this project is 1/3 of the overall project cost. And this project aligns with Vision Action Plan goals for the welcoming and inclusive, play for everyone, accessible and safe, and preserving natural areas, goal areas. Next, you see the pollinator pathway on Rock Creek Trail. This is the second of 3 projects recommended for funding. It was the 3rd most popular project in District 4. This project would remove invasive blackberries and along the power line corridor and plant drought tolerant native pollinator plants adjacent to the Rock Creek Trail. This project also proposes installing 3 accessible benches along the trail and installing educational signage to promote learning opportunities. It's the THPRD's match for this project is 1/3 of the overall project cost, and it helps meet Vision Action Plan goal areas for accessible and safe and preserving natural areas. Finally, we have Connecting People and Habitat in Aloha. This is the 3rd project, and it came in the 11th in the community vote. This project focuses on Recuerdo Park and proposes expanding the gleaning garden on the north side of the park along Southwest Marty Lane. The proposed expansion would include educational signage. Community members expressed interest in THPRD partnering with a Latinx serving organization to implement this project, and initially identified Adelante Mujeres as a potential community partner. If awarded, staff will assess their capacity and interest in this project because we don't know if this is something they would like to take on with us. This project seeks to invite patrons into the park, creating opportunities for those visitors to connect with nature on the park's existing viewpoints, trails, bridges, and shelters. This is also the project's match is 1/3 of the overall project cost, and it helps meet the welcoming and inclusive and preserving natural areas goals for the Vision Action Plan. So here, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Metro for their leadership in convening and facilitating this program pilot. I also want to recognize the other jurisdictions that work to implement this within Metro Council District 4. Thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about this.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Comments, questions?
Well, my comment, as my peers, this is, you just teed me up. I am beyond excited about the pollinator. I can't help but I think everyone, that was probably the first thing I asked if we could do something to put on the parking lot when I first began serving here. So that's really my comment that you have is that's right up my alley. So stoked to see that that potentially is on the bookies, but this is exciting work and excited to see how things play out.
That was one of the common themes out of all 28 that made it through. There's several pollinator through different jurisdictions too.
I have questions, but I'm tired and I'm wondering if they're actually helpful. So I might just send an email, but it's overall, this is great. I think this might be of interest to my peers. There is kind of a shift in how people are thinking about public budgeting. And as an example, the city of Portland will be very likely voting in November about including essentially what is being modeled here, participatory budgeting for their own city budget. The city of Boston does it, the city of New York does it, very similar model in terms of like, here's projects that people get to vote. And it's just something to be mindful of in terms of what the public is wanting and expecting. And we are a large jurisdiction. I don't know if our public will ask us to do that ever, or if we would consider that. So it's been on my mind as our neighbors are embarking on it. But I love this. I think a lot of my questions are just like really logistical around like what did we need to agree to and long-term costs. So that can all be done via email, but really appreciate this work. I know it's sort of different than how we typically do things and you're partnering with different people. And so just really appreciate all the work and excited about the outcomes.
Good. I'm good as well. Thank you very much. It's very, very helpful, very informative. We're on to agenda item number 9C. I'm seeking a motion to approve for special district representative.
I will so move that the board of directors approve Miles Palacios as the representative for THPRD in Washington County on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee.
I will second.
All right, Jessica, please.
Miles Palacios?
Yes.
Barbara May?
Yes.
Lisa Montefalco?
Yeah.
Alfredo Moreno?
Yes. All right, motion passes, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.